Wake up. I've been watching you. Come closer. Closer.
Hey, it's Jay, and that's right. My number 10 favorite film of all time is Donnie Darko. So the way I'm going to do this review, because this movie's kind of confusing, is I'm going to give a brief plot synopsis, explain what I think is going on and why the events happen the way they do in the movie, and then give my critiques slash praises as to why I like this movie, the faults that it has, and then of course give the final rating. So without further ado, let's take a look at Donnie Darko. So, the film revolves around a boy named, Donnie Darko, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, a troubled teen who is awoken by a mysterious voice, and he's taken outside to find a man dressed in a very eerie bunny costume named Frank. This is one of his imaginary friends because Donnie goes into these, zombified states and sees Frank. And he informs Donnie that the world is going to end in a very specific time, 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. And that Donnie is somehow the key to reverting all of this. In this episode, Donnie falls asleep elsewhere, only to return home to find out that a jet engine has fallen through his house. None of his family is harmed, but his sister, Elizabeth, played by, fun fact, Jake Gyllenhaal's actual real-life older sister, Maggie Gyllenhaal. So that's a fun fact for you. She informs him that nobody knows where the jet engine came from. Not even the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Nobody knows where it comes from. Which it makes no sense because, jet engines don't just fall off of planes. So it's very confusing as to what is going on here. So over the next few days, Donnie continues to have hallucinations of Frank, and his parents are having him sent to a psychotherapist, Dr. Thurman, played by Catherine Ross. She believes that Donnie is here physically, but his mind is somewhere off in a different reality, not in our own, and claims that his hallucinations of Frank are daylight hallucinations, and thinks that he's showing signs, of paranoid schizophrenia. So that can't be good. In a later vision, Frank asks Donnie if he believes in time travel, which leads Donnie to go to his professor, his science professor, Professor Monatoff, to talk to him about time travel, which he seems to be a firm believer in. So he gives Donnie a book called The Philosophy of Time Travel, written by Alberta Sparrow, who used to be a science teacher at the school, and now just seems to be this crazy old woman who, ritually, every day, stands in the middle of the road, walks to the mailbox, checks the mailbox, sees that there's nothing there, and then goes right back to the middle of the road. She almost gets hit 5 times in this movie, so it's really it's unnerving. But she wrote this amazing book about time travel, which Donnie reads through. At the same time, this new girl named Gretchen Ross, played by Jenna Malone, comes into town and to avoid her stepfather, but that's a whole other thing. And she and Donnie start to really like each other, and as they say in their town, they start going with each other, which I guess is a term for, going out with each other, because they both kind of have troubled pasts, so they really connect on that type of a level. So throughout the movie, Frank is influencing Donnie to do things that, no sane human being would do. This includes bursting the school's water main and flooding the school. A huge PTA meeting is held, and the gym teacher, Kitty Farmer, attributes the actions to the book that's being taught in their English class. The teacher, Karen Pomeroy, played by Drew Barrymore, is assigning the Destructors, in which some boys go to this house and destroy it. And it's meant to be shown in an ironic sense because they're destroying the house to see what would happen. And as Donnie says, destruction is a form of creation. Because when you destroy something, you want to see what's created from it. Whether it be someone's reaction to something getting destroyed, or maybe you can rebuild the something that was destroyed into something better. So it's meant to be seen ironically, but the gym teacher doesn't see it that way and is very, very devout to the teachings of one man, Jim Cunningham, played by the great Patrick Swayze. And it's all such a scam, but nobody seems to see it, except for, of course, Donnie. And to kind of, change the students' minds and perceptions of what they're being taught in English, they're given attitude lessons. And she has this spectrum that they have to mark certain scenarios on, but the spectrum is so vague. It just has fear and love, and Donnie's like, that's not how it works. What about the other millions of layers to human emotion, to human complexity? And she's like, that's not how it works. And tension is, brought up against the gym teacher's family and the Darkos because both their daughters are on the dance team. So later on, while Donnie is walking home, he finds Cunningham's wallet on the street. And he looks and he now has his address. He now knows where he lives. And he takes Gretchen to a movie to see Evil Dead. And while his youngest sister, Samantha Darko, played by Davy Chase, is doing her dance competition, and everybody's there having a great time watching, the students dance, Donnie finds his house and burns it down. Now, this may seem bad, but what is uncovered in the blaze is a secret room, just packed to the brim with child pornography. So this man that everybody is looking up to and, taking advice from is actually a scumbag human being. And only Donnie saw it. And I know it doesn't justify him burning his house down, but again, Frank's the one that was like, all right, you have his address now. You might want to do something about that. And so he does. And Jim Cunningham is arrested. Kitty Farmer wanting to testify for him and, not have him get locked up because, she's absolutely, just, invested in everything he says, cannot go to the dance trip because the dance team is actually accepted to some big competition. So she asks Donnie's mom, played by Mary McDonnell, to go on the trip instead because she isn't going to because she's going to testify. So, with Samantha and their mom away on the dance trip, and with Donnie's father, away on business, Donnie's father is played by Holmes Osborne, by the way, Elizabeth and Donnie decide to throw a Halloween party because Elizabeth was just accepted into Harvard University, which, that's massive. So they decide to throw a huge Halloween party. So everything's going great until Gretchen shows up very distraught because her mom has gone missing. Remember, she has a very violent stepfather and they had to leave town and change their identities just to try to avoid him and get away from him. So, Donnie consoles her and they finally, get intimate in their relationship, which is huge for their chemistry. Amongst all this, I forgot to mention before, Donnie sees this, wave of energy leaving people's bodies, which guides him on paths that he needs to, to get to Frank. And so he's following these paths, and there's a sign on the fridge that said, Frank was here, went to get beer. That's not just a clever rhyme. Frank triggers something in his mind that, oh crap, the end of the world is coming. Because the day that he was told that there's 28 days was October 2nd. It's October 30th when they throw the party, which means that the end of the world is just hours away. So Donnie and Gretchen and his two friends go to Sparrow's house to try to figure out what's going on. and they go into her house. She's not home. What they're greeted by is two high school bullies. One is actually played by Seth Rogen. It's actually really funny. And they're robbing the house, and they put a knife to his throat, and then a huge scramble and rumble ensues outside on her front lawn as she's returning home. A car comes, and like I said before, she just stands in the middle of the road, has to swerve to avoid her, and in the scrap, Gretchen is thrown in the road and hit by the car, actually getting killed. It's revealed that the person driving the car is Frank. Not the Frank that Donnie's seeing, but Elizabeth's boyfriend this entire time has been Frank. It's the same dude dressed in the bunny costume. It's the same Frank, but it's also not the same Frank, if you get what I mean. So Donnie shoots him in the eye because in the movie theater, Frank does arrive and he takes his mask off and his eye is completely missing. And that's why, because Donnie shot him in the eye. And he tells the passenger to go home and tell everybody everything's going to be okay. I did that accent. I'll explain a little bit later. So Donnie, with Gretchen's dead body in tow, goes to this mountain peak and sees a vortex open up over his house. Seeing this, he knows exactly what he has to do, and he starts to head back home, using a vehicle he took from his parents' house. As he's driving, he sees the plane that's carrying his mother and his sister, because they are coming home because the dance competition's over, get sucked up into the vortex, effectively going back in time. However, the only thing that doesn't go back in time with the plane is the jet engine. And this triggers everything that's happened in the past 28 days. Burning down that dude's house, flooding the school, reading the destructors, all the stuff with Frank, the dance competition, meeting Gretchen, everything gets erased. And Donnie wakes up on October 2nd when this whole thing begins, just laughing in his bed because he knows exactly what's going to happen, and he knows that it's exactly what needs to happen to make sure that everything is just nullified. And instead of getting up and leaving, he goes right to sleep, turns over and falls asleep just as the jet engine is crashing through his house. And everything's back to the way it was. The next day, everybody is mourning the loss of Donnie. His family's mourning the loss of Donnie. Gretchen, just arriving into town as the new girl, asks what happened because she has no recollection. And in a very, very brilliant moment, she and Mrs. Darko wave, kind of confirming that they know each other, but they just don't know why they know each other. It's so poetic, and the film ends. And yeah, that's Donnie Darko for you. Now, let me get into my theory as to what I think is going on. Before I do, I'm going to be putting 2 links in the description for you guys to check out. It's really fascinating. They did a lot of really great research on the movie and came up with some really brilliant theories. I am not influenced by them in any way. I just want to let you guys know that because I want to come up with my own interpretation of what's going on. But they're really fascinating reads. So make sure you guys read them. I'm going to put the links in the description. I forgot to mention that Frank is played by James Duval, by the way. So what I think happened was, on October 2nd, when Donnie gets called out of his bed by Frank and goes outside, sees Frank for the first time, and the jet engine falls through their house and doesn't kill Donnie, it effectively splits the tangent universe from the real universe. The real universe is everything that happens before the jet engine falls, and the tangent universe is everything that happens after the jet engine falls and Donnie's not in bed. But you know, when you think about parallel dimensions, you think of them happening concurrently at the same time. What I think happened was, when the jet engine fell through the ceiling and didn't kill Donnie, the tangent universe glommed onto the real universe, thus making it the dominant universe, and the real universe being the parallel universe. You know what I mean? So, an example, the universe we live in right now, we're all experiencing, watching this video, me recording this video, is the real universe. I personally believe that there are alternate universes out there, but we all call them the parallel universes. Well, when the jet engine fell and didn't kill Donnie, I feel like they kind of swapped, and the real universe became the parallel universe, and the tangent universe became the real universe, which isn't very good. So, as these 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds are going on that Frank reminds him of, everything is playing in a tangential universe, meaning that it's not actually happening, but it's also happening. And this is what's going to happen if, things don't play out the way they need to be. And that's what Frank is trying to tell Donnie. So finally, when the world comes to an end and Donnie sees the plane effectively warp back through time and seeing the jet engine falling towards his house, he knows exactly what he has to do. So when time erases and resets back to October 2nd and Donnie's in bed, laughing like a mad person, and just accepts his fate and rolls right over as the jet plane falls through his roof and kills him, I think that then created the timeline necessary to put everything back where it's supposed to be. The tangent universe is the parallel universe, and the real universe can play out the way it was supposed to had Donnie not gotten up to go to Frank. So that's just how I personally believe it happened. I guess I know a lot of people are probably thinking like, well, where'd the wormhole come from? If we are to believe that the jet engine was going to kill Donnie regardless if he left the bed or not, the portal was there in the beginning, so there's really no need to explain why it's there, because I think it was going to be there regardless if Donnie stayed in bed or went to go, see what Frank wanted. So, as he said, you just need a vessel that's fast enough to break the speed of sound to create these portals. And what the professor says was, if a portal could just appear anywhere at any time, that's an act of God. And so maybe God plays into all this, but that's the thing. I don't know. There's so many interpretations that you can take with this movie. It's so open-ended that I don't even think the writers know what they were trying to achieve with this film. That's an exaggeration, but I mean, I'm just trying to, make an example and a hyperbole of how just complex this movie is. I guarantee you, if you had a room and a case study of people who had interpretations of what happened in Donnie Darko, no two people would have the same answer. So, again, read those articles. They are fascinating. Which now brings me to my critiques and what I loved about the film. I don't have much to critique because I feel like critiquing this movie just is a waste of time, because if you're complaining about it not making sense, I feel like it's not supposed to unless you really dive deep into the meaning and the lore and all that. So it's really not supposed to make sense at that standpoint. So it does have flaws, but I don't know what they are. Like, this movie is so confusing, it warps with you, it messes with you that, I don't know, it's just, and that's the genius of it. That's what brings me to my pros. This movie's ingenious, because what I was telling my mom when I was watching it, this movie is subtle, but it's not subtle. In a sense where you, the viewer, knows what's going on, but the characters in the movie have no idea what's going on. And that's just, I love when movies do that. This film's a psychological thriller, and it does such a good job, even before the jet engine falls, even before Frank shows up for the first time. It does a fantastic job at setting up something's not right, which I always look forward to in horror movies, or thrillers, especially thrillers, that what's going on? I feel unnerved, but why? Nothing's happened yet. I think a lot of that is attributed to the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this movie is phenomenal. He pulls off a normal person and someone with mental health issues flawlessly. It's like, not even like, there's no effort there. It's amazing how seamlessly he just weaves these two together. The accent he puts on when he gets hypnotized by Dr. Thurman to explain, who Frank is, what he's seeing, what did he say, what did he tell you to do, is so chilling, because he puts on this childlike persona. That's why when I said that line before of, go home and tell everybody it's going to be okay, that's exactly how he said it, because he's in this like zombified state. Whenever he sees Frank, he also puts on this voice. And it's so chilling hearing this like childlike voice describe these horrible events when he's like, yeah, I burned down that pervert's house. It's like, oh God, it's like, imagine a child saying that. Not a teenager with kind of like, with mental deficiency. An actual child saying that. It's chilling, it's unnerving, and it just adds to this film's atmosphere and intenseness so much. Not to mention, the characters are all linked in such a great way that it just adds to the strengths of the film. What I mean by that is, Donnie Darko had a very troubled past. Gretchen also has a troubled past, who has a troubled family, which the Darkos are kind of troubled because they don't know what to do with Donnie. They don't know how to handle Donnie, which kind of adds a little turmoil to their, the whole, structure, the whole make of the Darko family. And Karen Pomeroy is often seen as a bad teacher, a failure as a teacher, which just adds to the conflict, the inner conflict of all our characters. And it's just great because no one's had anything good happen to them this entire film, unless you count Donnie, kind of saving our reality as we know it. And just everything is shot so beautifully. They have very fast-forward scenes of the day going on, just showing, regular school days. Juxtapose that with the horror that's about to happen, whether it be Donnie flooding the school, putting the axe in the mascot statue, and then writing, "They made me do it," on the concrete, or whether it's him, burning the house down. What's great about that scene is they juxtapose, Donnie, splashing gasoline everywhere, setting this house on fire, with his little sister's little kids' dance routine, dance recital, where all these parents are cheering for their daughters, and it's, put right next to Donnie burning this dude's house down. I know he has child porn, so we shouldn't feel bad for him, but we didn't know that at that point. This is just Donnie burning a dude's house down. And so I love shots like that, where they just take scenes that have no business being in the same shot together and making it work seamlessly. The other thing I have to say, my mom brought up a great point. Patrick Swayze as Jim Cunningham was brilliant. Because think about Patrick Swayze. He's always playing a good guy. The golden boy, the one everyone loves. And he's playing such a slimy, disgusting con man in this movie. It's a complete 180 from roles we've seen Patrick Swayze play in the past before Donnie Darko. It's so good, and he, knocks it out of the park. It's Patrick Swayze. Come on. He can't do a bad performance. He's just such a solid actor. Everybody in this movie, so solid. Drew Barrymore really captures, because with Drew Barrymore's character, you kind of feel like she hates her job. Like the way she looks at her students, the way she's teaching the class, just like the way she's like handling herself and presenting herself. But then you realize that she actually really does care about her job, because she objects strongly to being fired. So she does a great, it's a great 180 of her character as well, to be like, God, she must really hate her job, to being like, oh wow, no, she really doesn't hate her job. She loves her job, which I wasn't, seeing that from what she was portraying. But I think that once you realize how much she loves her job, I think that's what shows that she's really just analyzing students. Not looking at them with disdain, looking at them with, I wonder what's going on with them. What's going on in their head? Let me analyze these kids so I can have a better understanding of them when I get into the classroom. Just simple things like that. At least that's my interpretation of how she's going about her day. It's just so solid, so beautifully shot. The atmosphere is intense. The performances are unbelievable, especially my two standouts that I mentioned, Jake Gyllenhaal and Patrick Swayze. Just everything about it is so trippy. And again, if your movie has so many open-ended discussions and open-ended opinions on what the hell is going on in your project, you know you're doing something right. And that's why Donnie Darko, in my book, gets a 4 out of 5 stars. That is my rating. That is above average. That is a great film. Highly recommend if you haven't seen, especially if you're a fan of the thriller genre. So yes, number 10, Donnie Darko. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit that bell icon, leave a comment, like, and all of that. Especially hit the bell icon so you get notified when I upload. Number 9, I might not get to it because I'm going away for the weekend, so it might be in another 2 weeks, but stay tuned. I might be able to pull something out. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, guys, that's a wrap.